housekeeping, and then Maria's going to say a few words of welcome before we get going. This year's theme is about health and well-being, and in particular stress and burnout, and I think that that's really topical at the moment. There is just so much going on. But for the housekeeping, to get that out the way, what we've got is a session that is going to be recorded, because we do know that a lot of people who wanted to be here today can't because the hospital's busy. And so we do actually put it onto the D-Ability website, and we know that people do access it and look at it afterwards. So if you don't like to be recorded, turn your camera off, turn your mic off, and that's absolutely fine. It's available in different formats for anybody who might need it. And again, I think we're quite used to this at D-Ability. Just drop an email to Maria or get in touch and we'll provide it in a different format for you. The running order, quite informal. So what we're going to be doing is a few words of welcome, and then handing over to Rebecca Williams, who's going to give us a lovely talk. I've seen it already, so it looks pretty interesting. A lovely talk on her journey, on her information and advice around health and well-being, and in particular coping with stress, burnout and recovery, which is brilliant. So I've already mentioned to mute your mics and turn your camera off if you don't want to appear on screen. That also helps with the IT, that also helps with the technology. But I'm expecting for Maria and myself and Amani and Rebecca to remain on the call, because we'll probably need to have some of that shared conversation. So just to mention one last thing on the housekeeping, which is a dog warning. Rebecca's been really thoughtful and actually locked her dogs away, but my dog's tends to get a bit noisy when he knows I'm in the house and I'm not close by. So he's in here. He's Labrador, he's very quiet, but if the doorbell rings, he will bark. So if anybody's worried about dogs and hears a dog barking, it's probably my Labrador, but there you go. I think that's most of the housekeeping out the way, so I'm going to hand over to Maria to say just a few words of welcome before we get started.
Thank you, Colleen. Can I just thank everyone for their patience? And Amani, quickly, could you please send the joining link to Humera? Thank you. So, hi everyone, I'm Maria. I chair D-Ability Staff Network, and our network was launched 3 years ago in November 2019. And this is our second year in a row that we are celebrating Disability Month, which usually lasts from 18th November to 18th December. I think this month provides us with a great opportunity to celebrate the contributions and achievements of people with disabilities and long-term health conditions, and also raise the awareness of the issues that affect us. And that is a prime objective of our network as well, to provide a safe space, a platform of our staff to share their lived experiences, to make our trust positive improvements. So on behalf of the network, I'm delighted to welcome you all to today's event that has a focus on health and well-being. So over to you, Colleen.
Thank you. Just before we hand over to Rebecca to start the presentation, I thought it might be quite interesting just to say a few words about health and well-being here at Gateshead. And I know people are probably breathing a sigh of relief, Maria, that the staff survey is closed, because we keep reminding everybody about it just about every second. But it's a really important source of information. And for D-Ability, I know when Maria's looked at this with members, it's been a really great source of feedback for the trust. So a few words about the survey results last year that we used to talk about what D-Ability asks the trust for in terms of support. We know that we had 509 staff say that they had a long-term health condition. And I think it's important to note that not everybody identifies with the term disability. I think it's had a lot of negative stigma over the years, and it's quite difficult to sort of identify with that if that's something that you don't see yourself as having. But because of that long-term health condition, they would qualify for the protections under the Equality Act. And that's an important thing to sort of advocate for staff. That amounts to 27% of our population in terms of our staff body. So actually about 1 in 4 members of staff at Gateshead actually have a long-term health condition that they manage, live with, that they've probably managed and lived with successfully throughout their lives, to be honest. We know from the profile, Rebecca, that they're more female than the trust average, that they're slightly older than the trust average, There's a slightly higher degree of carers, but that's carers of adults, not necessarily carers of young dependents. So that brings with it a different challenge, doesn't it, when you're actually caring for someone. And they're also likely to have slightly longer service. So their loyalty gate said they've been with us a wee while. But what's really interesting for me is when I look at actually what that profile means to our patients and our services, because 3/4 of them work in services that in areas that provide a service or treat members of the public. So actually this is a key part of our workforce supply, and keeping them healthy and well is actually fundamental to our success. They also provide a huge amount of information because of that lived experience of their own personal lives that they can bring into the workplace and share with the trust. So it's not just about the manpower, it's not just about the skills, it's also about that lived experience that Maria talks about. And actually, for me, it's quite interesting because half of them, 51% of them, regularly do additional hours for the trust. And that's probably connected to where they're working. If they're working as a nurse or a healthcare or an allied health professional, you can see that that's key. So I've just got a couple of points from the staff survey that I want to share, because for Rebecca as an external person, they'll be quite interesting. When it comes to my immediate manager taking an interest in my health and well-being, we scored slightly worse last year than we did the year before, but that was for both people with long-term health conditions and people without long-term health conditions. So there was no difference there. But when it came to in the last 12 months, did you feel unwell as a result of work-related stress? It was significantly higher for people with long-term health conditions. That was about 60%, whereas for those without, it was about 40%. So you can see that there are some areas where we're very similar to the rest of our colleagues, and there are other areas where perhaps we're a little bit different. When it comes to approaching my manager to talk about flexible working, about 59% of staff with a long-term health condition said they could, slightly worse than the 65% of staff who don't have a long-term health condition. But we are much more likely to have had a health and wellbeing conversation. And I think that's a fundamental source of support to people when they're needing to ask for reasonable adjustments or ask for differences in the workplace. That is key. So one final word, which is really just about COVID-19, because I think for the whole of the NHS, COVID-19 actually threw up an awareness of how we're supporting our staff and how important it is to support our staff, because in the middle of a pandemic, you rely on that workforce and you can burn through that workforce at a fair rate because of the pressures in the system. So I think currently that's something that nationally is being looked at, and I know that we've done an awful lot of work on health and wellbeing internally in the trust that we'll probably talk about shortly. But currently there are increasing pressures, rising levels of burnout in the NHS, that cost of living crisis, which is affecting everybody. So it's never been more critical to kind of invite people like Rebecca along to talk to us about this, to help ourselves, and also for the trust to hear how it can help staff as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Rebecca, and I know she's going to say a few words about herself and her background, and I can see from the presentation she's going to take us on a little bit of a journey.
Well, hello, my friends.
You can see it.
Lovely.
Everyone see that?
Thank you, lovely. Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me. I am joyous to be with you. I am most joyous to be with the heroic souls who are holding the NHS up, but also I'm quite joyous that the tech worked, so thank you for that. Now, I'm Dr. Rebecca, I'm the Lifejoy Coach and Author, and I'm going to share with you today my little story, the story of my grandmother who was heroic, and in between those extremes of life, hopefully there will be some wisdom, some treasure, and some highlights for you to take home and practice in your own life. And what we'll be looking at is the first attack at stress and outshining your burnout is that we build your mental strength, your wisdom, your courage, and your perspective. So here is my granny. How much do you love that photograph? It makes me joyous every time I see it. And the reason I'm joyous was because she was brave and she was a true giver, and she would marvel at everything you all do. That's the first thing to say. So I'm going to tell you about her journey, where she went and what she did, and help us learn the lessons from her life. So thank you. So here she is, bang in the middle in 1908 as a little flower girl with her sisters. And she had an affluent life. She went to private school. Her father built his own business. He ran several businesses. And then problems with alcohol hit him and he drank away all the family money. And this is real Catherine Cookson stuff, I can tell you. And she said the only thing she wanted to do as a little child was to work in a sweet shop, because then she'd never be hungry. And my goodness, every time she told me that, it broke my heart. And every time I looked at her feet, it broke my heart, because she had never had shoes that actually fitted her. She always had somebody else's shoes. And you have never seen toes as ugly. They were like gargoyles' feet. Poor darling, they were just so crammed. But she always loved good shoes. So if you do nothing else today, please look at your feet and be thankful for your good toes and your good feet. So this is what she would say. Managing stress, burnout, health and well-being. Here's the premise. Thank you for trying. It's heroic to keep going and to know that life is bumpy and unfair, and that within that, how wisely we think and act gives us the powerhouse for a crusade of courage to keep going. And challenges, illness, stress, disability, life events, death, grief, divorce, debt, disasters, injustices, those things that hit us, we must scoop out as much loving purpose as we can from the challenge, because there is always people who would swap with us. Now that's a very easy statement, but I speak from quite an extreme hinterland of where my character and soul have been stretched, and I hope there are lessons for you. And I always say to my clients, and I work one-to-one, I write books and I do presentations like this, is that wherever you are in your life and however stressed you are, I could find you 1,000 people who would swap. That's a profound basis of wisdom, I think, to start with, because it's always a privilege to be at work. It's always a privilege to try. It's always a privilege to be able to get up and get going at some level. And the fact you're trying is in itself heroic. That people, a large chunk of workforce, are dealing with heavy loads, often invisible loads that the world doesn't see. And they turn up every day and they smile and they try and they give and they look after the lost lambs in this world. So please remember the sentence. It's heroic to keep going. It's heroic to keep trying. Thank you. Next slide, please. Now, this is where that little lost lamb landed up. She ended up in China. Now, can you see her in the middle? She was very shy, very quiet, and yet the bravest woman in the world for me. And here she is. She went to China as sister tutor, and she went to teach the local people to be nurses. She went to the University of Peking for a year and learned common language Chinese, which is a feat in itself in a year. And whenever she was frightened, and with me, and I did terrify her a lot of the time because I was too enthusiastic, she'd shout in Chinese. She would revert back to that. That was her first language in many respects. But just look at the girls on that picture and then look at the bloke on the right-hand side. Can you see his contentment? Can you see the joy that he thought, all these women are blessing me in my life and there's no blokes around? And I look at him and I think about what his life must have been like. But there's Ivy Madeline in the middle, and she's next to the doctor, who she referred to as Wiggy, and the pair of them ran the mission hospital in Manchuria for women. And she had the worst and the best of starts, but she did have a weapon, where she was addicted to qualifications and learning and giving from them. So she spent her life scooping up the lost lambs, like we all try to do. And here's the thing, here's the reality of the wisdom, is that many of us are a bit of a lost lamb. But here's the treasure, is that our challenges, our suffering, our long-term conditions, our grief are the powerhouses of empathy, hope, and progress. So all of that difficulty is of immense value. And I always say to my one-to-one clients who come to me often very burnt out and very broken, I say your intellect, your integrity, and your industrious nature are powerhouses to goodness. And that's what we're all doing here. And the fundamental question about managing burnout and stress for me is, what are you doing to make it a bit less bad? Not better. It's all right. Let's stop the rot first of all. What are you doing to make it a bit less bad? Stop things getting worse, stabilize, and then we have the luxury of looking about moving forward. Thank you. So how do I get to be talking to you about Ivy Madeline and my peculiar little life? I have had a very meandering world. Well, I'm bringing you the Lifejoy tools and strategies, and I hope they help you. And Lifejoy stands for love, integrity, fortitude, energy, joy, offering, and you. And when we apply those principles to life, people shine ever brighter. And here's the Lifejoy model. As you may see, I have a sunshine study, and I love sunflowers, and I'll explain why later. But I will tell you, when my husband had come in one night from a very arduous night shift, a bit bemused with exhaustion, he walked in here and he saw my, dare I say it, my placa sunflowers and the yellow that had been painted overnight. And he said, I don't think we've been burgled, but something very peculiar has happened in the study. And I didn't say anything, and I shuffled him to bed. And then I just painted a bit more with my tester pots. But I love sunshine. I love the hope of the light. So the Lifejoy philosophy is to help us think well. When we listen well, we choose well, we write well, we speak well, and we live well. And I have taken nearly 1,000 loving funeral services as a celebrant as part of my broader work. And I will tell you, 1,000 people will swap with you, because all of those people I looked after would love to have another chance. They'd love to be a bit stressed. They'd love to be a bit burnt out. So looking at it from that point of view, it gives us a different perspective. That doesn't mean it's easy or it isn't lacking tremendous difficulties, but it's always a privilege to be here. Now, why have I got those numbers at the top? Well, here's a sentence for you. I did everything right. I was a good girl. I went to church. I was in the brass band. I was good to my granny. I did my homework. Super SWAT. I did everything right, and it went horribly wrong on me, to the point where I was very ruined. At 17, I was fit as a lop. I could run up a mountain and party forever. Not that I did much party. And I got glandular fever. And overnight, I was ruined. And I ended up for the next 20 years with severe ME. And often glandular fever, and often the poor people with long COVID now have had a Coxsackie kind of virus, and they are damaged after it physically, and their neurological systems aren't working, their temperature regulation doesn't work, their balance doesn't work, their bowels and their bladders are messed up, their energy system is completely kaput, is probably the technical word, and many parts of their life are gone because functioning is so massively difficult. So for the next 20 years, so from 17 to my late 30s, don't work out how old I am now, I'm very, very old. I'm not quite as old as some people on this call, Mr. Dinsdale, but you know, we're hanging on in there. So I had between 12 and 40 weeks a year in bed, housebound, or hospital. That was not fun. It was ruination. I couldn't think my way out, positive my way out. I tried everything possible to be well in the public and private sector. And in the last 30 years, every decision I have made, from the tiniest ones to the most massive ones, has been dominated by issues of health and stamina. So the 1,000 funerals that I took, well, every time I took a funeral service, every time I've written a book, done a presentation, I've had to be careful about what I did the day before. So I had enough energy to be with you all. I've written 4 books on joy, courage, and hope. And the one, I didn't know what the one was, and then I worked it out. I've had one puppy, and I will show you the picture of the puppy soon, because she has nearly killed us. There's a bit of truth for you. But I did 1 A level at a time as well. Now, what does that mean? It's just because you can't go full pelt at something, please don't think it's not worth doing. I did 1 A level on 2 hours a week of school, and I went in the back of a taxi. I laid down in the taxi. The taxi driver thought I was dead, and should I take you to A&E, but you know, take me to school. And my lovely friends carried my bag, and I sat in the classroom on the nearest seat to my door, and I did the 2 hours, and I went back to bed for a week, got to the next lesson. It was torturous, but I was still trying. I was still desperately trying to hang on. And what that meant was I did 2 A levels over 2 years, and I couldn't go away to university. So the world started to lap me because everybody was overtaking. But I wanted to keep a joyous spirit, and I did not want to be embittered, and I wanted to make some progress. So I went to my local university and I did 1/6 time of a degree. Now, all you clever people who've gone full-time, I salute you. All you clever people who are doing part-time, well done. But 1/6 time was a joke in the 90s. People made jokes all the time about it. But then the university started to notice. They asked me to do talks on resilience and fortitude and motivation. And somehow by the end of that degree, which took me forever to get, I was like the oldest old lady student, I came top. And I came top not because I was clever, but because I had the Lifejoy tools and I was applying them all the time. So the university very kindly then offered me a master's degree and I finished up with a doctorate in conflict resolution. And that came because of 1/6 effort. So remember, please, whatever you're doing, your 1/6 effort is a huge, huge asset. So sadly, I've been top of the class for burnout. I would wish none of you get there. So if you have any kind of infection, if you remember nothing about today, please do not push when you have an infection. If you have COVID, glandular fever, flu, chronic conditions that are made much worse. But please don't slip. It's the push that a lot of people with ME did. I'll fight it off. I'll get back to work. I don't want a sick note. I can't be off anymore. Please, diligent people don't need chasing. They need care. So glandular fever is a big flag. I would ask you to look up Emily Collingridge. She was my bravest friend. She wrote a book called Severe ME, A Guide to Living. She didn't make it till 40. Her life was so ruined. I can give you lists of other names. So this is not about being a bit tired. I would urge you to look at the work of ME research, MERGE it's called, Professor Julia Newton at the RVI, and the issues of mitochondria and energy. So please, please, please don't push with an infection. And then don't say glibly to somebody, just manage your energy, just pace yourself, because that's like telling a poor person to live off 10 pence a day. And people don't end up in bed because they think they'll have a duvet day and a fun time watching telly. They end up in bed, especially the diligent people, because they can't be comfortable anywhere else. They are ruined. And I don't ever want to be in that bedroom. I want to be up and going in the world. And it's because those systems are ruined. So I hope that's why I'm speaking about burnout so much, because my mission and purpose is to prevent anybody getting into that much mess again. I want you to be as well as possible, but that takes awareness and effort to start with. So next slide, thank you. So here she's back, Ivy. Now, please take note of our footwear. Have you ever seen anything more lovely than her furry boots from the back of the Daymark catalogue? Take a good look. She would go mad with me for telling you. And I've got my Clark's T-bar sandals on because they were the rules in the 1980s. But here's the other thing. I've got somebody else's dress on, a coat from Saver Centre. If you're old, you will know what Saver Centre is in the Northeast. And we are going off on an adventure together. And she would want me to tell you about her stoicism. But she wouldn't want me to because she's far too humble. But I will tell you anyway. You manage your mind and your thinking. And we think a lot about our attitudes and values in coaching work. But here's the point. We all know about brand values, don't we? Let's drop the word brand. Let's just live them out. And you do that more and more every time you're brave, every time you look after somebody who's unwell, every time you go to work with a smile on your face and the weight of the world on your shoulders. You are shining. And please, please remember that. Now, here's a bit of a coping strategy for you. Whatever's going on in your life, your mind, your work, your home, get it down on a piece of paper and think about what you can do to make just the smallest modicum of improvement. Make a plan and prepare. Then put it in any old messy order and do the easiest bit first. Even if that's making sure you have enough water to drink through the day. These tiny actions have a cumulative effect. And one of my favorite phrases is that action negates worry. What are you doing? Now, often we worry about procrastination as being a bad thing. Sometimes procrastination allows us to pause and research and think. And sometimes a little action, a little try takes us forward. Now, I would think everybody in this call is in a busy season of life. A lot of work, a lot of responsibility, a lot of wanting to take care of people well. Busy seasons of life are a privilege, but they still need managing. And everybody here today, and I pray that the people who will listen will realize that they are part of a new tribe, the and yet tribe. And why do I say that? Because it doesn't matter what load you're carrying, and yet. So all the difficulties, all the sorrows, They are tools for your toolkit of coping that you then go and look after other people with. Thank you. Now, Ivy spent her whole life shouting at me, "No, Beck, no," because I was a Geordie tornado and could not sit still. And I still want to be that so much. But here's the thing. Let's turn our mutes off just for a second and be rebellious. Come on, come on. Whenever I've done talks, there is a theme that we must continue. Is when I say "no, Beck, no," I'll say it after 3. Let's just shout in the worst cacophony we can. Yes, Beck, yes. 1, 2, 3. No, Beck, no.
Yes, Beck, yes.
Yes. Yes. You're much better than all the other people I've ever done this with. So, yes, Beck, yes. So I want you to have a little bit of yes, you, yes. Go on, my treasure. You can try. You can do it. A little bit is worth it. A 6th time is worth it. Now, do you all have your ID badges? Do you all have them that are around your neck or pinned to you? Wonderful, wonderful. I think the best thing I have ever seen professionally is an ID badge that sort of is on a wire and it pulls out. Have you got, oh, to me, they are the premiership of ID badges. Now, I had had 20 years of such severe illness. I was told repeatedly by a lovely immunologist, a lovely cardiologist, that I was unemployable. That is a difficult thing to hear, especially when you're diligent. And the thing I most wanted in life was a lanyard and an ID badge. Please, please. So all the things, those normal bits of life that people often think are a nuisance, they get lost, they get broken. Oh my goodness, it doesn't work. There's a whole sea of people who would love to have one. And I'm very proud to be the patron of a mental health charity in Sunderland called Headlight. And I knew nothing about mental health until it exploded on us when my lovely mum got early onset dementia, the worst kind, in her 50s. She had severe epilepsy, severe psychosis, and a degenerating physical state. So we have had a ton of illness hit us. And I went to Headlight in sheer desperation because they ran a lecture on resilience. My mum was in hospital at the time. I was still severely unwell. And I said to my dad, if we can possibly manage it, can we go to this lecture? We've got to learn about this because our life was crashing down upon us. We went. And the psychiatrist who was giving the lecture had forgotten to turn up. So the poor people at the charity were at the door saying, "I'm so sorry." And my dad put his arm on this poor man's shoulder who was shaking with nerves. He said, "Don't worry, Becca will do it for you." And I thought, will I? And by heavens, I did it a year later. But here's the thing. I've understood the extremes of physical illness, the extremes of mental illness, 1,000 loving funeral services, and all of that struggle, I hope, will help you with what comes next. So what are you looking for with burnout? The senses that you need. I have struggled with energy for as long as I can remember, but I do not want to be dominated by it or defined. So I want you to think about your energy in tanks, 4 tanks, or however many you feel you've got: mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. You can call it creative or contribution or whatever. And the people who end up burnt out are the poor people who are working themselves to death, giving themselves to death, holding up the world, and their tanks are low and they're running on fumes. Now, nobody would expect you to have full tanks all the time, never have a debt, but you do need to be putting something in them to look after you all. And I call this loan shark living, when we live on fumes and don't look after ourselves very wisely. Don't live in loan shark land. Live in a lovely credit union on a big day and in the black if you possibly can the rest of the time. So what are the signs of loan shark living? Well, I've had more than 50 clients this year who've come to me quietly with all of this going on and not made a word of fuss anywhere. They've had foggy brains. The ends of their tether are very short. They worry more. They have that Sunday night dread all the time. They don't have many boundaries. There's an angst in them. They're at the negative end of that curve of life. And sometimes there's a level of judgmentalism that goes on, that we're trying to be perfect and do perfectly. And there's a lack of boundaries and ability to defend ourselves. But sometimes also with my clients, they don't have the lines ready to look after themselves, and they think it's properly diligent to kill themselves working themselves to death. And what in all things I strive for is balance, and then from balance comes blessings. Thank you. Now, I love sunflowers because they are tall, they are golden, and they seek the light. But occasionally they need some support. And that's the whole point, the humility of knowing that we need it. So how is your physical energy? Are you worn out? Do you get lots of bugs? Do you feel well? What's your pallor like? What colour are your lips? My lips always go a bit pale and then a bit blue when I'm too exhausted. They give me away before I've even said I'm tired. How's your level of enthusiasm? Do you go to bed at night hopeful for the day that will come? Do you go to bed thankful for the one you've had? Are you a little bit excited about what's coming at the weekend? Are you living in fight, flight, freeze or fawn mode all the time? And I don't know if you've still got your mutes on or not, but I could just say no, Beck, no. And what would we hear?
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I threw that one in. Didn't expect it, did we? What are your recovery times like? Do you have an imbalanced life? And it's chronic situations of people holding up the world and not making any fuss that reduce your tanks. So please, not only look out for your own burnout, but that of those around you. Thank you. So here's Ivy. Now this is Ivy in a village called Fakumen in Manchuria, and this is her hospital. And she's bang in the middle with her head covered. And these are what's called Kang beds, K-A-N-G. And they have a heating system running underneath them. And it's just phenomenal what she had and she didn't have. She didn't have antibiotics. I have to tell you, she loved three things in this world: bleach, methylated spirits, and antibiotics. And she honestly thought that alongside an early night would solve everything. But it solves an awful lot an early night. So she's got some people sitting up there. She's got some people lying down. Now, I have a client, and she's given me permission to tell you this, that her surname is Go to Bed. And it may be pronounced, got to bed, but it's Go to Bed. So Ivy would tell you, and I would too, is that the best way of self-care is not pamper days or parties or too many shoes or all the lovely things that we can do externally. It's about getting a regulated sleep pattern that will look after your energy and your mood and your mental well-being. It's boring, but it's true. And I speak from somebody who had the worst sleep. My hypothalamus was completely drunk, is probably the best word. So I couldn't sleep at all at night. And I had so much pain and discomfort. And I also had real problems with my ability to tolerate food. So I spent many nights on our bathroom floor because I was too ill to get from the bedroom to the bathroom. It was easier just to stay. And there were very touching moments through all of that illness. And I had one year when I just about never left the bathroom. And two things happened. The moments of kindness save people's sanity. And my dad used to put the heating on through the night so I wouldn't be freezing to death. And, it's very hard to think about that now, isn't it? And we had a carpet in our bathroom. And my mum got worried that our bathroom wasn't posh enough once. And she said, should we take the carpet out? And this is anecdotal. And I remember saying to her, no, because the carpet's warm. And when I'm on there at 2 a.m. being sick for 17 times, the carpet is a help. So these tiny bits of qualitative anecdote help people cope. And I remember she used to say to me, if you could tell me something I could do to make it better. And I remember thinking, if I just had a couple of more pillows that I could leave in here, that would help. So my mum went out and bought like 27 pillows just to try and make it better. But this is the other point, is do not let yourself slip with bedtimes. Your toddlers, your children, your pets need routine. And dare I say it, so do we. So you need a morning routine and a bedtime routine that looks after you. And one of the things about physical energy that most people take for granted is a good night's sleep starts in the morning with some daylight to get some vitamin D and some melatonin and your cortisol levels sorted out. So please try and get to bed at a wise time. And please, I am not going to mention booze, fags or sugar, but if you know me, people will say, oh, let your husband have a pie. Go on, let him have a sweetie. But the thing that worries me most is what bad food does to us. And if you can possibly drink as wisely as you can and not have any coffee after lunchtime, I'm going to come and chase you. But the question about managing your energy and health is this wise for me to do it? Now, I have to ask that at a very extreme level. I wanted to go to a carol service on Sunday night, but I wanted to be energetic for all of you. And I knew if I got an infection on Sunday night, that would be devastating and I wouldn't make today. So I had to not go to the carol service. I've lived 30 years like that, trying to make wise decisions. But I've been self-employed for a decade because of it. And we've also got a very distorted perception of rest and relaxation. They're different things. So please find your ways to decompress. If you can run, if you can go to Zumba, if you can go to parties and have happy times, wonderful. But if you need a happy home day and a restful weekend, embrace it. Embrace your creativity, your spirituality, your contribution, your care. All of that gets you to bed at night where you can learn the lessons of the day, be thankful for the blessings and the joys, and sleep with a peace that you've done your all and looked after yourself wisely. Thank you. Now, why is there a picture of me looking a bit deranged with like millions of post boxes? Well, welcome to Mr. Postbox. Now, I don't want to lose my glee despite the role that illness has dominated. So it took me 7 years to be well enough to walk to our postbox. And our postbox is 4 minutes away. And I had to do it by lamppost by lamppost. It was excruciatingly difficult. But every time I go to a postbox now, there is unrestrained joy within me. So I want you to think about the nearest postbox to you and to know that the tiny treasures of life will fill your soul. Think of what a postbox does. It just stands there, it delivers your letters, and it's reliable. So Mr. Postbox has been a great stalwart in my life of sending out books that I've written, but also people now send me photographs of postboxes. It's a big joke. You like this one? It's in Aberdeen, and I think I can't go to Aberdeen. But the tiny treasures of you setting your tone help you manage your mind and your burnout and your stress. Look at the small things with glee. Live in the ordinary hours with appreciation. I'm still overjoyed that I can get up, get washed, get fed, get my teeth cleaned, look after myself, and I am never more delighted than I can go in the shower in the bathroom. Everybody takes those things for granted until you can't do them. Don't wait till your body and soul and mind are screaming or ruined. Please live a sustainable life. Check your breathing, check your presence and your productivity. We measure ourselves on productivity only, but the gift of you just being there is more than enough. Kindly, wise manners, no thank you, yes please. If you've got difficult conversations to have that are making you nervous, rehearse beforehand. I spend all of my hours with one-to-one clients, helping them have conversations with their boss, getting them practiced, trying to find a win-win solution. So I would ask you to, if you can go to a postbox, rejoice in every second and every breath of getting there. And if you can't, look at them and have a goal to get to one, if you possibly can. Thank you. Now, managing stress and burnout, should I say get a puppy? Well, the puppy has been the hardest thing I have. It was harder than a doctorate. You have no idea the trauma that thing, that loving ball of filth and mischief has caused us. But having a dog for me was an enormous life goal. It's what normal people do. It's what well people do. And people with exhaustive and chronic conditions just want to be in the well world. We don't want to be poorly and in the house and unwell and, restricted. We want to be part of the world that functions comfortably. And what a lot of people with fatigue conditions do is they work in the well world and they come home and they recover. But also they are passing in the well world. That's how I would phrase it, to try and look well and cope, and then they come home and then have the weekend absolutely crashed. So a slow shine is what I'm always thinking about. Now, don't get worse. That is my sentence. But think about your energy levels as being an imperfect balance, and it's fine for them to be low and high and all over the place. They just need refilling. Wise boundaries of knowing that it is your contribution, not just consumption, that keeps our mental well-being and our physical well-being. And one of the biggest things about managing a limited amount is that you need to plan your diary. You plan it for meetings, don't you? You put things in and to-do lists. Do you plan your rest, your joy, your mental quietness, your stillness? And the people who've got tiny amounts of energy, especially the people with long COVID and ME, and immense fatigue from multiple sclerosis, degenerative conditions, Crohn's, all those nasty things, meds that are making people exhausted, is that you need to plan the day with a flow in it so that you can rest when you have you do some activity, you have some rest, you do a bit more activity, you change around so that you are living in credit union land, not loan shark. And be aware of the joy givers in your life. That puppy has given an awful lot of joy to a lot of people. He's completely trashed our house and we had secondhand furniture to start with. So my goodness, you know, it wasn't looking good at its best. But here we are. She wants to be everybody's friend and she is thrilled to see everybody. What an example and what a way to live. But she's also a bit of a thief and a bit of a troublemaker and has ruined our dining room table, king-size mattress, dining room chairs, fireplace. I could keep going on, you know all this thing. But I know it's a privilege to have a dog and I know that she'll thieve my energy away, but I still look at her and I still think, my goodness, I'm well enough to have her. Thank you. Now, did I mention booze, fags and sugar? Oh my goodness. Ivy was frightened of drink because her father was, I think, a violent and aggressive alcoholic who had been a beautiful, lovely man and was so gripped by illness. So I never told her when I had actually ever been in a pub because it upset her. And my pals all wanted to be in the Students' Union and in the pub. I went to the Students' Union twice in 10 years. That's how sick I was. And somebody had a cold. So somebody shouted across the room, "Get out, Beck's got a cold. If you give Beck a cold, she'll be in bed a month." So this poor boy went out and sat in another room in case he gave me a cold. That level of thoughtfulness was so kind. But again and again and again, it needed to be enacted. So when I've talked about planning your energy, think about where it's going and do an audit of where you're drained and what is wise for you to be doing. And I will tell you a huge secret is that I had been married for 10 years before I knew my husband had a tuck shop at work. And it just slipped out. And I don't know how it slipped out, but he told me a lovely anecdote that he had gone to the tuck shop and I thought, are we in boarding school? Are we in Harry Potter? Tuck shop? And he had not found any sweeties or Mars bars. And he had found a £20 note in the tin. So somebody had been very honest because somebody had cleared out 20 of the Mars bars and left the note there. And I just thought this was the most joyous anecdote about what goes into you. If you're putting diesel into a petrol car, it will not run well. So dare I say it, self-care really comes from discipline about your food, your sleep, your intake, your water and your output and your movement and what you can do. And the life that we're living now is the outcome of many of those choices. So when we ask ourselves, what does the evidence tell me? What will be wise to take care of my health? What's reasonable? What's long-term? And poor Ivy's father had a short-term problem that was alleviated by the drink, and it caused long-term devastation. And I've had lots of clients with problems taking in things that don't do them any good and the devastating effects of it. So I have a very boring, restrictive life compared to lots of people, but I delight in it because it's so much better than being in bed. And your routine reaps rewards. Now, why have we got a picture of a cupcake with a flag in? Well, all of my clients that I've gone out to in the world, and thank you for having me because you've protected me from flu and COVID by doing it online, I took cake to. And it used to kill me to make cake. I've made millions of cakes, but it was an enormous icebreaker. Now here's another story about Tuck Shop Gate. A man took the cake from me once and he said, "Love, I need to have a word with you." And when somebody says that, it sort of unnerves your stomach a bit, doesn't it? It makes you wobble. And he said, "You need to stop all this faffing around with cake and bits of things. So there's one truth every woman needs to know." And I sat there and I could feel myself getting paler by the moment. He said, "The fact is this, men need pies." And then the place erupted. But this is a thing you have on your birthday. It's not a thing that gets you through a difficult morning and gives you a shot of energy. Dare I say it, the more you look after yourself, the better your machine will run. And a lot of people spend more money on their cars and maintenance and their dogs and pet insurance than they actually look after themselves. Thank you. Now, when I said no, Beck, no, let's do another one. Put your hands on your head. Now, in panic, I just wanted to see if you do that. You can put them down now. I love doing that every time. People always do it. Now, put them back up because there's a reason. In panic and worry and stress and burnout, we often put our hands over our faces, don't we? Well, first of all, don't touch your face, you'll get an infection. But instead of the panic and the burnout, feel the bones in your skull. Look at your beautiful structure. There is only you on this planet with your brain, your character, your soul, your personality, and all of your talents and abilities. That's something worth feeling and remembering in the moment of great stress and trouble, or mediocre stress, or somebody's late, or the tech doesn't work, or somebody cuts you off in traffic. Remember, 1,000 people would swap, and your talents and abilities are shining. So remember this, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. The value and the insights from the hinterlands are very important, because not only are we trying to look after lost lambs, we are the lost lambs. And when difficulty presents itself, because you have a wonderful section of health and well-being and care and all your structures and occupational health and all the goodness, but good people will still be worried about ringing in sick. Good people will still be trying to get back too soon. Good people will be worried about the reception they get when they ring in. That somebody doesn't say get well soon or take care. They say, will you be back tomorrow? So it's a lot of this is about tone. And ultimately your logic and your excellence defy prejudice. If somebody says to me, have you had yuppie flu? I want to smack them in the face. You better take that out of the edit, because you don't say that to Emily Collingridge's mother, because Emily is not here anymore. You don't say it to Sophie Mercer's mother. Even if I were a yuppie, I didn't deserve what I had. And so injustice and prejudice and difficulty that comes with illnesses where there is very little treatment, very little known about, and you are completely left. You need to have your excellence ready to defy your prejudice, and to never need the self-pity police, to acknowledge the injustice and the difficulty. But I leave you with a sentence: to be a vigilante for goodness. Now, I had a bonus grandpa who died 2 weeks ago at 94. I adored him. He was one of my best friends. And I had to battle a lot for care for my mother. And the battling for her care and connectedness was as bad as the illness. And I did think when she had frontal lobe dementia in her 50s and all the horrors that befell her, that people would understand and the care would fall into place. And it was difficult. And it was difficult whilst I had an utterly diligent husband who was doing night shifts and doing all he could in the NHS. So my grandpa used to text me before I went for meetings with social workers and care providers and trying to get her to have the right meds at the right time. He used to say, go and be a vigilante for your mother, sweetheart. And so I say now to everybody I meet, be a vigilante for goodness. Be the example, seek the example. And the bridge to the hinterland, you're building that bridge from the well world, the disabled world, the unjust world, back to the world where everybody takes everything for granted and life is easy, with tales that are important. And the reason I put this picture up was this was my first job at Newcastle University, and I went to talk to them about fortitude, resilience, motivation, and Ivy. And I remember it snowed, so I went 2 hours early to get there, and I sat there and I did a whole morning's training. And then they said, will you stay this afternoon? And I couldn't, because I wanted to get back to feed my mum. And because I'd done that huge exertion of energy and nobody knew there was anything wrong with me, I had 17 days in the bedroom to recover. I was so ruined. And here's the point. I had a rebooking at Newcastle University on day 18. You have never seen a moment like Lazarus come back to life. Oh my goodness, I've got to get there. And then they said to us, will you stay this afternoon? Will you stay? And I was like, if I stay, I will be another 18 days till you hire me again. I cannot cope. But there were moments of wonderful normality, but there's often a payback that nobody ever sees. Thank you. So I thought I'd leave you with my happiest of pictures. People talk about vision boards a lot, don't they? You might expect me to talk about life goals and where do you want to be in 5 years' time, and come on, stand on the next man, get there. I love all of that. I celebrate goodness and quiet courage and heroic care. So I would suggest you find some photographs of the people who have made most difference in your life, and not make a vision board. I love the idea of it, but make a blessings board. Write 100 down. Your favorite teacher, your best boss, your best colleague, your happiest moments. And I love caravans. If you want a 1970s Monza, I would be your girl. But put that up and see who you are and look at it all the time. Put a collage of pictures on your phone to remember that whatever's happening now, it's a stage in life. It's not who you are. This will have valuable lessons. And if you possibly can, know that we all get tired. It just needs wisely managing. And as you can see, my mum did like scooping me up. And I was about 10 and I was taller than she was. And she used to say to me, especially when I had I went to bed once with a flu infection, and because I had ME, it made it 10 times worse. So I'd gone in the bedroom in November and I didn't come out till spring. And I cannot tell you how difficult that was. The world was moving on. That was my longest stint, unable to get out. And she used to say to me, you are still the full-blown beauty, though exhausted. And I used to think, I'm not very beautiful, Mummy. I'm so poorly. This is terrible. And she still thought, come on, let's just finish that little essay. Let's see what we can do. Can I buy you some more pillows? So your moments of getting an extra pillow, moving away because you've got an infection, having a mask on to think about other people, those silent moments of goodness save people's lives. So here's the thing. We've all exhausted. A lot of people have had babies and no sleep and night shifts, but they're not ruined because of it. They can recover. So the most important thing I would say to you is healthy people who have had beautiful, glorious lives of jobs, careers and holidays and hobbies and passions and pastimes and so many choices. They can't really understand what it's like. It's impossible, but they can be full of empathy. They can be full of humility. They can listen more than they speak. They can learn. And they can see that the struggle to function is something that we might have a bad week. It's not a bad life. People in lockdown had some understanding about what restriction was. Imagine if that was 20 years. Imagine if you didn't get out your bedroom. Imagine if you were tube fed on morphine, riddled with pain, tortured, no treatment, no help. So see the wealth of our own normality. And remember that mental and physical well-being is tied up with spiritual well-being, creative well-being, contribution and care. It's a package of you. And for you to shine ever brighter, it needs to be cherished. Thank you. So my final thoughts to help you is if your knees are bending, seek some help. Find a champion, but be the champion. And remember, I don't want introducing. Somebody once introduced me as, this is Beck with ME, get off your seat, she needs to sit down. It was said with such kindness, but I was mortified. I was Beck who liked post offices and post boxes and fireworks and the seaside and wanted a dog and loved Strictly Come Dancing. I wasn't just Beck with ME. And here's the point. One of our greatest points of stress in life is when there's an imbalance between the amount of responsibility we have and the amount of authority we have. We feel we've got to do everything, but we've got no authority to do it. And that needs kind and wise boundaries. So I call them the 4 Ps for you. Priorities. Know that it's a privilege to be in this world. We have to be proactive to look after ourselves and others. And we need plugins to manage our energy wisely, because you manage you first before anybody else. Thank you. Now, this is such a small goal, but have small goals and do them with joy. I have never been on a plane. I've never been drunk. Sadly, haven't had any children. I've never had a kebab. There's so many things I haven't done. I have a friend who thinks not having a kebab is the worst tragedy in the whole world. I have to be really careful about what I eat. But the thing I most wanted to do was see a field of sunflowers. And I had pictures of Tuscany and Italy, and oh goodness, it seems so far away and so difficult to do. And then a client sent me an invitation. And this was a client who terrified me and is now one of my great friends. But she said, would you like to come to the Sunflower Trail in Durham? My goodness, I nearly screamed the place down. Let's go to Durham, please. I was so happy to be, and I do have more than one top, I would just like to say, just there. But here's the thing, I was in a field of sunflowers and nobody knew. Nobody knew. So there was a joy in that in itself. So I'm going to leave you with what happened to Ivy. Ivy had been a midwife in the Gorbals. She'd specialised in eyes at Moorfields. She'd spent all of her time in China dealing with child prostitution, vice, opium addicts, and women treated disgracefully in her care. And yet, every time I sneezed or had a runny nose, she thought I had some terrible disease. Every time my teeth would fall out as a little girl, she'd say, don't smile, darling, because people will think you're an opium addict. So she had these really weird ideas about the world. But yet, she spent her whole time looking after the lowest of the low in society as they viewed them. And yet, her staff would go missing because she was in occupied Manchukuo, as they then called Manchuria. So the Japanese forces would come and just steal her staff and imprison them. So she was the one who went to plead for them. She spent her life then working in retirement for Amnesty International for political prisoners. She had 6 miscarriages. Her husband went to war and was bombed in Malta Harbour, had 3 heart attacks and a stroke and war wounds. And yet, she had my daddy at the age of 43, and what a gift he has been. So I would say to you, be the lost lamb, look after the lost lamb. I'm not going to mention booze, fags and sugar ever again, because I know none of you do any of that. But your burnout needs to be turned to some balance if you possibly can. Do an audit for yourself and others. And anybody who sends me a list of 100 blessings will get 10 curly whirlies and not be allowed to eat them. Now, Ivy's final words for you. She would say, go and see Becca. So come and see me. You can have an hour, half an hour for free. That would be lovely. But take Ivy with you. And she would finish with this. She would say, Shao Shamba, Shao Shamba. And she'd say that to everybody she was leaving. And that really means, and however badly I've pronounced it, please forgive me, it means go gently, be safe, take care of one another, and great luck. Thank you very much for having me.
Wow, thank you so much, Rebecca. That was really inspirational. And actually, we're going to try and have some questions at the end and some themes at the end. Unfortunately, I think time's against us, but I wrote down so many good snippets and so many useful points there. And actually, I think it was a very empowering discussion. I think it enables us. Sometimes we feel things are done to us. And that can be a really powerful sense of injustice, but actually it's quite inspirational to say, take that control back a little bit and try and use the good parts of what you know to actually evoke a change, a positive change for the best. So, you know, I must admit, I'm too much down there, but that vigilante for goodwill is just really infectious.
Gorgeous, isn't it?
It's
Yes.
gorgeous. It's gorgeous. I know Maria wants to say a few words of closing. We're up against time, so I'll hand over to Maria just to conclude, but thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me.
Oh.
Thank you.
You're on mute, Maria.
Sorry about that. Actually, Colleen, I would like to invite Michelle Newton to say a few words at the end on behalf of Disability Staff Network. She's our neurodiversity lead. So Michelle, please.
Okay, thanks everybody for attending, and I hope you've took something away from your busy day to be able to take from to be health, well-being, shine and be joyful. I took a few things away, and yes is one of them. I'm an active member of the Bladder and Bowel Service, and they support a programme of work for the Trust to improve the working lives of not just us with disabilities or long-term health conditions, but actually all members of staff. And I hope all members of staff are able to watch the recording of this. The network will continue to reflect on today's discussions. They're going to continue to ask questions. They're going to continue to be a voice. And I just hope that more people attend and become active members of our network. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Over to you, Colleen.
Well, to be honest, I think that's our session finished, and I had to turn my camera off because the doorbell rang. So I knew there would be a dog warning in there somewhere. And what we'll do is we'll share the information on the website, because I think that's quite a useful resource pack for everybody to go to. And one last thing, at the end of Disability History Month, the whole of the NHS has a disability summit. And this year the theme is around data and experience and using that to try and evoke some positive changes in the NHS. So we'll probably be pooling together some information and resources from that and sharing that with people in due course. But it really just remains for me to say thank you so much, Rebecca. That was really inspirational. I really enjoyed that. If anybody does have any further questions or queries, they can just email the inbox to Disability, and actually we'll share your details with anybody that wants to get in touch.
Let's be pals. Let's be joyous.
Absolutely. Let's be
joyous. I've got acres more.
Thank you all so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you,
Take care.
Rebecca. And
Bye.
thank you everyone for
Thank you
attending.
all.
Bye.
Go safely. Thank you, my friends, so much.
Check if it's still recording, and it is. So I don't know how to make it stop recording. So I think it'll record till 1:15.
Go. Oh,
So, but yeah, just let us do its thing. I think.
I think very wise. Just let the tech flow.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. It was very good. Very insightful.
Bless you and thank you for having me, my tech
Thank you.
guru.
Have a nice day.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Bye. Bye.